Well, hey folks, Lori Daybell just received 2 additional life sentences for conspiring to murder her fourth husband, Charles Vallow, and attempting to murder Brandon Boudreaux, her niece's ex-husband. But before she was handed her fate, Lori took the courtroom on another wild ride through constitutional grievances, near-death visions, and spiritual monologues that sounded more like a cult sermon than a sentencing statement. Let's examine how Lori's bizarre final remarks impacted the court, how she twisted scripture to justify her crimes, and the moment that the judge stepped in to remind her and the world that truth still matters, even when it's buried beneath layers of religious delusion. Hey, welcome to Profiling Evil. Please hit that like and subscribe button and share Profiling Evil with your friends. Now, after some incredibly powerful victim statements, Lori Daybell was given her final chance to address the court. She didn't express any remorse. She didn't even apologize for the pain and destruction that she's caused. Instead, she delivered exactly what I expected. A revival sermon at the First Church of Lori Daybell, and true to form, she made it all about herself. She kicked off things with a polite little thank you to her advisory team. You know, those people that she was leaning on while she pretended to be her own lawyer. Then it was off to the races. She told the judge, the jury, the victims' families, and the rest of us watching from home that she was representing herself and it was her constitutional right. And boy, did she run with that right. She talked about how much she learned about the law. But here's a little spoiler alert. It wasn't enough, Lori, because this is a person who thinks she's a legal scholar. She even touted it saying, quote, knowledge is eternal, and it's only love and knowledge that we acquire in this life that we can take with us to the next life. Close quote. Well, she told the court that before this legal journey, she thought the trials were both sides simply telling their stories. But now she says she knows the rules are designed to suppress the truth. Her truth. Lori's truth. Nothing but her truth. And here's where the deflection kicks into overdrive. Because according to Lori, the American justice system didn't just fail her, it was out to get her. She says she wasn't allowed to call witnesses, ask law enforcement questions, or admit documents that the state gave her. Now, never mind that all of these evidentiary things are governed by legal rules that apply to everybody. But in Lori's world, that's persecution. She felt like the Arizona justice system made it impossible for her to defend herself. And I want to pause in case any of you are out there agreeing with this kind of thinking, because there might be somebody who actually thinks that George Washington's rolling in his grave because Lori Daybell wasn't allowed to enter her zombie charts, those things as graphs and exhibits that she would want to share. Now, Lori also complained that Arizona took too long to bring this case to trial. And because of that, she suffered tremendously in the Maricopa County Jail. She reminded everyone that there's no sunlight, no nutrition apparently, no dental care. Well, I guess she's lucky that Arizona's a desert state because at least there aren't any alligators. Now, she called her housing inhumane. And you know what else is inhumane? I want Lori to kind of hopefully get this message. It's inhumane to have your husband shot in cold blood in front of your children. It's inhumane to conspire to kill a man because you think he's possessed. And it's inhumane to kill your children just to get them out of the way. It's even inhumane to kill your lover's wife. And it's inhumane to maybe kill your brother. And some are suggesting your husband, Joe Ryan. But I'm just saying, and maybe diverted too far, I don't know. Well, then Lori spewed a lie that the judge didn't even wait to call her on. As soon as she said it, she claimed that 98% of the cases in Maricopa County end in plea deals because the jail's so awful that people confess to anything just to get out of jail. Well, I don't know what that's all about, but that's not the actual stat the judge called out. But who needs facts when you're being persecuted for righteousness? And then, because this is Lori Daybell, we went from courtroom complaints to a full-blown gospel hour. Hey folks, it's Mike from Profiling Evil, and I wanted to take a moment to invite you to join me at CrimeCon Denver. It's in September, and you won't want to miss this. If you love true crime, and you love hanging out with people that like true crime, you ought to come and enjoy the 6,000 plus people that come to CrimeCon and take part in this amazing event. And to make it a little easier, I've worked out a deal with CrimeCon to give you a special discount on your registration. So when you go to registration, make sure you enter the code word KING, K-I-N-G, my last name, and that'll get you a discount on CrimeCon. And I look forward to seeing you there. Hey, by the way, bring your books, and I'll make sure to sign them while we're there, and we'll get some pictures together. Hey, we'll see you soon at CrimeCon. She straightened up to the microphone, and she called the world to repentance, saying that she mourns with all of us. She feels the family's pain, those people that were giving their victim impact statements. She said, as she tried to squeeze out a teardrop that never came, that she would have apologized if she'd ever done anything wrong. But then it got downright eerie. She told the court about the time that she temporarily died, reminding them about giving birth to Tylee and the near-death experience. She describes going into the spirit world and back. She said there was no hate, no anger. Grief magically disappeared there, and everyone was just kind of floating around doing their favorite hobbies. And yes, she even said that Charles, Tammy Daybell, JJ, Tylee, all of them were busy, happy, and peaceful. Now, Lori said all this with a straight face. No one there is seeking revenge or justice in heaven, she said, but here on earth, ooh. Well, in her mind, their deaths weren't murder. Okay, she thinks maybe family tragedies, but she thinks that they're transitional periods. Lori said she tried to recreate that blissful peace right here in her jail cells, which is probably kind of hard to do because they don't have any sunlight or anything, remember. And remember, this is the same belief system that Lori used to justify every one of the murders. So if you think someone's a zombie and you believe the only way to save their souls is to kill them, then murder becomes mercy. Delusion becomes doctrine. Evil becomes divine in that broken world where Lori Daybell lives. And then Lori Daybell broke out the big guns, scriptures. She started talking about warriors in heaven, warriors on earth, warriors in the Bible who rose up in prisons. She talked about the bad guy, Saul, who turned into the Apostle Paul, and God's battle trumping the legal system. This wasn't a courtroom anymore. It was a battlefield for souls, and Lori sees herself as the soldier in charge, wrongly imprisoned, but spiritually free. The prisoners shall go free, she proclaimed. But no one, especially the judge, was in the mood for these theological gymnastics, and he cut her off and corrected the record. But she wasn't finished. And she quoted even more scripture, all with that same wide-eyed conviction that she's used to manipulate everybody from Chad to Alex. And you know what? These are the exact kind of things that I unpack in my book, Wolves in Sheep's Clothing. This is what happens when predatory minds wrap themselves in holy cloth, when they hijack faith to excuse their violence. Now, Lori doesn't just distort the truth. She rebrands it. And when she's finished, the judge said the final word. He started out by calling her on her bogus stats, saying that her trial was fair, and he pointed out that two different jury pools listened to her cases, 24 jurors, and they unanimously found her guilty. He said, this isn't one prosecutor or one judge's decision. This is the community voice. And he also addressed the reason for bringing her to Arizona despite the Idaho life sentence, reminding everyone that justice just isn't about punishment. It's about acknowledging the pain of the victims. And then he turned down the screws. He said, you're not that person who made one bad decision, Lori Daybell. The amount of planning, the amount of calculation, the amount of manipulation in your crimes is unparalleled in the judge's career. I mean, let that sink in. Unparalleled in the judge's career. He accused her of preying on the vulnerable, weaponizing empathy, and leaving a wake of destruction across multiple states. He even wondered out loud whether her brother Alex Cox, who died under those mysterious circumstances, may have cracked under the pressure that Lori put on him. He reminded her, you exploited the empathy of others and you turned it into a tool for harm. And with that, he handed down 2 more life sentences to run consecutively to the 5 that she's serving total. No parole, no credit for time served. Just 1 more set of bars, 1 more set of prison cells that she'll die in. And it kind of makes me wonder, it kind of makes me wish that if her belief of multiple life experiences is true, that maybe she could die for J.J. Vallow's death, then be reincarnated just to serve another life sentence and die for Tylee Ryan's death. Well, of course, then, after reincarnation, she could serve another life sentence and die for Tammy Daybell's death. Then, after reincarnation, serve another life sentence and die for Charles Vallow's death. And finally, unless there are more charges that come down the pike, after her reincarnation, she could serve another life sentence and die for attempting to kill Brandon Boudreaux. And I'd like your thoughts, and I hope you'll put them down below. And now you can hear her comments for yourself as we go to that sentencing clip.
Representing myself at these 2 trials was a constitutional right that I exercised. I could not have done so without my team. Annalena Ramirez, my paralegal, Jeff White, my investigator, and Pamela Hicks and Robert Abernathy, my advisory counsel. I acknowledge their diligence and hard work in helping me exercise that right. They worked tirelessly, and I appreciate them. Representing myself, I have learned much about the law through this process, and I'm grateful for the knowledge that I have gained. Knowledge is eternal, and it is only love and the knowledge that we acquire in this life that we take with us into the next. I have studied the rules of law, case law, and the like. I was amazed and enlightened as my understandings were completely changed from before I started this process. Before this long court journey, I only had basic understanding of the judicial process. I was of the understanding that both parties would be able to get up at a trial and each tell their side of the story, but I soon learned that the rules of law do not allow that.
Actually, they do.
The process is much more complex than that. It is not designed for that, although the Constitution of the United States was designed for that. The rules of law negate most of that. As a defendant, I was precluded from calling several witnesses. Other witnesses for the defense were precluded from testifying things that they did witness. As a defendant, I was precluded from asking law enforcement specific questions. I was also precluded from admitting documents that the state turned over to the defense as discovery. The founding fathers of this country did not intend for the rules and laws of trial that have been implemented into this justice system to make it impossible for the accused to defend themselves. Their objective was quite the opposite. They advocated for a fair and impartial and speedy trial. It was never their intention for people to be sitting in jail for years and years waiting to be tried while the state continues to try to gather new evidence against them. This is what our unjustice system has become. Men and women sitting in jail for years and waiting to be heard. The constitutional right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness thwarted. My case is not unique. There are many here in Maricopa County that have been in jail almost 10 years waiting to be tried. The conditions of this jail are not for long-term confinement. You do not have access to direct medical care. You do not have access to proper nutrition. You do not have access to sunlight. You do not have access to decent dental care. In fact, when you have been at Maricopa County Jail for 1 year, they come to your door and offer you a vitamin D supplement because you have not been in the sun in a year. Imagine this for years. It is inhumane. The state of Arizona, according to the laws, since I am a prisoner from another state, only had 90 days in which to give me 2 speedy trials. That's 3 months. I arrived here at MCSO on November 30th, 2023. That is over a year and a half, 20 months specifically. That is over 6 times the amount of time it should have taken for me to have these 2 trials. But Arizona leaves this law up to the judge's discretion, and the judge has the power to extend your trial at his will. Even though the 6th and 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States proclaims otherwise. 98% of all cases in Maricopa County end in plea deals where the accused plead guilty. And I'll tell you why. It's so miserable in that jail that they plead guilty so they can go to the prison and have decent food, decent sunlight, and a chance to live. 2% of all cases in Maricopa County that actually do go to trial, of all the cases that actually do go to trial, only 0.2 end in acquittal. That is 1 out of 1,200 people who go to trial go home.
That's actually not the correct stat.
Is that a system designed to convict you? The rules of law governing trial assure that. As you witnessed in my 2 cases, the judge supports the state to achieve this outcome. So here we are, the state of Arizona has accomplished its intention. 1, to extradite me from Idaho. 2, to convict me. And 3, to add to my ledger of lifetimes. The state used countless taxpayers' money to transport me, house me, millions of dollars to wrongly convict me on 2 charges that they made sure judicially that I could not defend myself against. I know political aspirations, raises, and job promotions were at stake, so congratulations. I was convicted in the media long before I went to trial. We all know that there was no way for me to come to Arizona and get a fair, impartial, or speedy trial. And now that fact has been proven. The state of Arizona brought me here when I was already serving 5 life sentences. Now I will serve 7 life sentences. Will that be enough? Will that be enough? I want everyone to know that I mourn with all of you. I am sorry for your pain. Losing those close to you is painful, and I acknowledge all of the pain, and I do empathize. I feel it too. If I was accountable for these crimes, I would acknowledge it, and I would let you know how sorry I was. But I have witnessed for myself what it is like to leave this mortal existence and return home when I temporarily died in the hospital giving birth to my daughter, Tylee. When our spirit leaves our body and we return to the pure energy state in the spirit world, we immediately no longer feel hate, anger, envy, or resentment. I promise you. We come to earth to experience these emotions, but these emotions are immediately replaced by a blissful, heightened sense of peace, love, joy, and well-being. The moment our spirit leaves our body, we feel more alive than we ever did on earth. And we have deep empathy for those we have left behind. We do not want our loved ones to grieve or be sad. We know that they will because that's a mortal experience, but they come to comfort us. We immediately know the minute you leave your body, you are aware of who you are, why you came to earth, and that we will all be together again soon, and that this separation is only temporary. All of the cares and pressures and problems immediately melt away. And after comforting our loved ones, we move on with our eternal life, continuing to pursue knowledge and wisdom and understanding in eternal progression. Heaven is a very busy and happy place where everyone is engaged in projects that they love to do. That includes Joshua, that includes Tylee, that includes Tammy, that includes Charles. No one there, none of these people are seeking revenge or justice. So although we miss our loved ones, and I do too, I assure you that they are busy and happy and peaceful. I have felt the kind of contentment that they feel now, and I try to duplicate that here. So whether I'm giving 5 life sentences or 7 life sentences, I will continue to try to uplift and help and strengthen those around me. It does not matter where you serve on earth as long as you do it with love. It doesn't matter if I'm given 7 lifetimes or the death penalty like my husband. What things look impossible to man are easy for Jesus. Jesus tells us in the Bible not to judge, but this whole entire justice system is just that. So I want you to watch, because God will show the world great miracles. I will continue to love everyone I come in contact with, and I will turn this battle over to God. If this is God's battle, then the math doesn't matter. 7 lifetimes or the death penalty doesn't matter. God's miracles will abound. When a soldier goes off to war, he is a soldier. When a soldier comes back from war, he is a warrior. And Jesus is in the prisons. He is turning his soldiers into warriors. For the prisoners shall go free. Sometimes victory doesn't look like victory until it's finished. Prisoners who have been told that they will never go free will be free. And I want you to expect miracles, and I want you to watch for them, because you will see. We fear not what man can do, because God's warriors surround us. When the battle is relentless, and this one has been for over 6 years, remember, God is building his army of warriors in the prison system. He is turning Sauls into Pauls. When Jesus is sending his servants into the prisons to prepare his warrior team, we will be there only until this purpose is complete, and then the warriors will walk free. We are redeemed by Jesus Christ, so we are free right now, but his chains will break. Prison walls will fall. The power and majesty of God will be revealed. When Jesus is ready, he will call his warriors from the prisons, and we will walk free, and we will serve him. I will quote Moroni, the great prophet, from Moroni 8:16, and he says, "Behold, I speak with boldness, having authority from God. I fear not what man can do, for perfect love casteth out all fear." And in Ether, Moroni says, "And now, if I have no authority for these things, judge ye. For ye shall know that I have authority when ye shall see me, and we shall stand before God at the last day."
Do you have anything else?
No.
In this day and age where truth seems to matter little to our talking heads on the news and to our politicians, I'm proud that this trial court And through our jury trials, we draw on the collective wisdom of jurors to determine the truth. As I said in my jury instructions to the jury, it is their job to determine the truth. The defendant spent several minutes talking about statistics and being prevented from presenting her side, and that is not the truth. Maricopa County is a court of innovation. We virtually screened hundreds of jurors, and we kicked off jurors from service that had ever even heard of Lori Vallow. So when she says that she couldn't get a fair trial in Maricopa County, that is not the truth. Your cases involved 24 separate jurors who deliberated and reached verdicts on these two cases. They represent a broad cross-section of society, which means these two verdicts represent the decisions of our community, not the view of a single person, not the view of a single prosecutor, and not the view of a judge. The collective decision-making of juries helps to reduce individual biases and errors in judgment. 12 jurors in the first case unanimously agreed that proof beyond a reasonable doubt established you conspired to kill Charles Vallow. And 12 separate jurors in the second case, again with no prior knowledge of you whatsoever, no knowledge of your notoriety, unanimously agreed you conspired to have Brandon Boudreaux killed. Many people have asked why the state bothered to extradite you and bring you to Arizona, given the sentences that you received in Idaho. Trials are not just about seeking accountability or punishment from those who have committed crimes, but to give the victims of crimes justice and acknowledgement of the impact of being a victim. Justice demands not only recognition of the pain inflicted, but a firm response that upholds the dignity of every victim harmed by the actions of someone who has shown blatant disregard for humanity. You've left a wake of destruction stretching from Louisiana, across Texas, Arizona, up to Idaho and back again. Anytime a person victimizes a single individual, the ripple effects of their actions extend far beyond the immediate harm. And you have not victimized just a single victim, but many. You've shattered lives, you've undermined trust, you've sowed fear in the hearts of many. I can't imagine what Brandon and his family went through for those months, hiding, Charles's family wondering who's next. Is someone coming for them? Jenny said a lot of the things I was already going to say to you, Brandon. I'll just touch on a couple of them. I had wondered during the trial whether you suffer from survivor's guilt, and she confirmed that for me today. I also remember looking at you in the back of the courtroom in trial, and just, you have this look about you of a wounded individual. I hope you can heal someday. To Charles's family, I just wanted to share with you that I'm sorry for your loss. Charles seemed like a great all-around guy. One of the exhibits that was put up during the first trial, I noticed something. He and I share the same birthday. So I'll remember him on my birthday. I have seen many, many cases in my career where someone faces a long prison sentence for what amounted to one split-second bad decision. You are not that person. The amount of contemplation, calculation, planning, manipulation that went into these crimes is unparalleled in my career. Your powers of manipulation are profoundly destructive, one that undermines trust, distorts truth, and can erode the very foundations of healthy relationships and society. The impact of your manipulation has been devastating insidious and far-reaching, and perhaps still unknown. One can't help but wonder if Alex died as a result of the extraordinary burdens that you placed upon him. No one will ever know. You preyed on the vulnerability of those around you, JJ, Tylee, Alex, Melanie, others. And today I heard about Colby. You specialized in exploiting the empathy and goodwill of others, turning those virtues into tools of control and harm. I think that over time, as a result of being subjected to your manipulation, those people lost their sense of self and their ability to distinguish truth from falsehood. In the face of such profound damage, a long prison sentence is not merely a punishment. It is a necessary affirmation that our society values justice, protection, and the sanctity of human life. You just referenced a Bible verse or a verse recently about the prisoners shall go free. That is not a literal verse. That is a verse about people that accept Jesus can be in prison and they will go free when they die and go to heaven. But it will take an act of God for you to go free. In short, you should never be released from prison. Eventually, the camera that you seek out so much, the media requests, will lessen over time and you'll fade into obscurity. The state has requested that I find additional aggravation. The court does find that in CR 2021-001704, the offense was committed in the expectation that you would receive pecuniary gain. In the CR 2022-001242 case, the court finds the emotional harm suffered by Brandon and his family to be immeasurable. The sentences on those aggravating factors alone will be justified. The state also asked to find an aggravating factor of a prior felony conviction within 10 years of this offense. However, I'm hesitant to do that just because of the way that statute reads, that the offense had to be committed before the date of the offense on these two crimes, which it wasn't. So the court will decline to find that aggravating factor. However, as I said, the substantial amount of harm to the victims and the victim's family, emotional, financial, and otherwise, are immeasurable and justifies consecutive sentences. Ms. Vallow, what's your position on Ms. Woodcock's restitution request of $8,949.52?
I just received it from my advisory council, and I'd like to get a chance to look at it. So I know that the restitution from Brandon hasn't been turned in yet, so we'll look at that, and I can discuss it with my advisory council.
Would you want to waive your appearance for a restitution hearing in the future and have your counsel handle that?
I don't see why I couldn't appear by Zoom.
I think my request would be just to leave, not waive her appearance at this time, but if there ends up being some restitution hearing, I can reach out to her and decide if she wants to be here for that.
I'm not going to have her extradited from Idaho for a restitution hearing if she wants to appear, so that's my issue here. She may be able to appear virtually, I don't know.
Because at this time, we don't have the restitution from Mr. Boudreaux, so.
All right. I'm going to set a status conference regarding restitution as to Kay Woodcock. We'll set that in a few moments. If you agree to it prior to that date, we'll vacate it. If not, we'll have to talk about setting a restitution hearing. The court will also, at the request of Brandon Boudreaux, issue a lifetime injunction that prevents you from having any form of contact whatsoever with him for the rest of your life. The court will also issue an injunction on behalf of Susan Vallow, Kay Woodcock, and Jerry Vallow that likewise prohibits you from having any form of contact with them for the rest of your life. You'll be served with those injunctions later today. In each case, It's ordered that you pay a $9 victim compensation fund assessment, a $20 probation assessment, a $2 victims' rights enforcement assessment, and a $13 criminal penalty assessment. Although it's largely symbolic, the court's going to impose the maximum fine allowable for each case. It's ordered that you pay a $150,000 fine plus a 78% surcharge on each case. Those total fines on each case is $267,000. I know the law says that you can't financially benefit off your crimes, but in the event that somehow you did, those restitution amount or those fine amounts are out there that can be paid. As to count 1 in CR 2021-001704, the court orders you to be sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after serving 25 calendar years. This sentence would run consecutively to the District Court of the 7th Judicial District of the State of Idaho in Fremont County, case number CR 22-21-1624. As to count 1 in CR 2022-001-242-001, it's ordered that you be sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after serving 25 calendar years. That sentence also, due to the number of victims you've created in the two cases, the immeasurable harm you've inflicted on many, it's ordered that that run consecutive to CR 2021-001-704. Because these sentences are consecutive to one another and consecutive to the Idaho case in which you are currently serving a sentence, you're giving 0 days credit for time served. You have the right to appeal from the orders of the court and to have a lawyer represent you. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you. If instead you want to represent yourself in your appeal, you must file a written waiver no later than 30 days after the filing of your notice of appeal. If you cannot afford copies of the necessary records and transcripts, they would be provided for you at no cost. If you want to appeal, you must file a notice of appeal within 20 days of today, or you lose that right. If you want to petition for post-conviction of relief, you must file a notice within 90 days from today, or within 30 days after the appellate court issues a mandate affirming the judgment and sentence in your direct appeal, whichever is later, or you would lose that right as well. It's ordered remanding you to the Custody Department of Corrections effective today to carry out those sentences. We're at recess.
Hey, thanks for hitting the like and subscribe button. And please tell your friends about Profiling Evil. Make sure you have notifications turned on. And check out Profiling Evil on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you like your true crime on the go, check out Profiling Evil's audio podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. You know, everything that Lori did in that courtroom, from the deflection to the phony empathy to the religious manipulation, is straight out of the Predator's playbook. And if you want to understand how people like her justify violence, how they exploit spiritual beliefs, and recruit others into criminal behavior, you're going to want to get a copy of my book, Wolves in Sheep's Clothing, because this case is a chilling example of how the profiles discussed in the book, things like self-appointed prophets using charisma and scripture to gain control, or how predators reframe accountability as persecution, how they turn empathy and faith into weapons. All of those things are inside the book. Lori's courtroom sermon isn't just delusion. It's ritualized manipulation. And Wolves in Sheep's Clothing breaks it down exactly how it is and how you can spot it, how you can stop it, and how you can protect yourself and those you love from it. So you can get signed copies at profilingevil.com if you live in the United States. Otherwise, just pick up Wolves in Sheep's Clothing through Amazon anywhere in the world. And thanks for supporting Profiling Evil. We'll see you soon at the next crime scene.